Hey guys, D.Bowie here, and this is how Matumbaman fights with Morphling. Two quick announcement guys. The first one is, I am very sorry for the audio quality for the past videos. I know most people don't care and they just want high quality Dota content, and I completely understand that. Let me try to explain though. I moved back to my college and this is a fairly small city. Also, I went to a pretty much isolated part of the town, so to me, there was no way soundproofing would be a worry in the videos when I moved. In the end though, there's a bunch of trees near my house, and when I can't record at night, the birds are relentless and the quality decreases. Also, even though I live in an apartment, the sound of the street is somehow massively amplified to my window, and even at night I can struggle with cars passing by, drunk students passing by, and if all of that was not enough, there's a fucking train that randomly starts chewing, just very annoying to deal with. I will move houses again in 2 months because I signed a contract stating I will stay here until January for the sake of just getting the quality up, and I hope the content of the videos can make up for it. Also, the Arcana suggestions are over. I am very grateful for everyone that sent me a suggestion, and to be honest, the number surpassed all of my expectations. Since the Boston Majors are coming up and I will be making videos about it, I will only announce the winner after it. So please, be patient. Okay, so this is a very crowded fight. They are pushing with Aegis, and while the first thing to note here is how he's not full agility. If you're split pushing and have vision of a good number of heroes, usually you can risk it. But in mid to late game situations, in a full push like that, you need to have more HP to not get bursted. He gets hooked, but manages to waveform away. Pay attention to his decision making afterwards. The most important part of this fight, and that a lot of people forget in the heat of the moment, is that if you try to maximize your life too much when you have Aegis, you will respawn with tons of strength, and it will take time until you can be useful. I really like his decision of making a replicate of Juggernaut. When things appear to be going wrong, Morphlings like to make replicates of their allies to run away. But since Morphlings replicates take 100% damage, they can actually be a very strong teamfight asset, especially against Radiant's heroes, Terrorblade and edgy heroes in general. Check how much work that Juggernaut illusion makes. Most players would retreat by now, but he knows that he has the TPs from the Jugger illusion and the full duration stun, but most importantly, he has a lot of mana. Pay attention to the illusion after killing Jugger. He kinda backs off, buying time for another cooldown of the stun. He backs off again, and then waveforms with TP, and he tries to protect himself from a hook with the Jugger illusion. Amazing foresight. Oh, you think the clip is over? His illusion is alive, and since Warlock didn't bother killing it with the Golem, and since creeps were there and there's no backdoor protection, he can go back. Also, as he heals, pay attention to how he waits to heal to full HP before morphing back. You will take way more time if you try to morph as you regen. By the way, I was joking, what actually happens is a little bit disappointing. He takes his illusion out of the Dire base because Legion respawns, and do you know why he doesn't morph strength? Duo actually applies a silence. Against most disables, Morphling can always get more HP and survives, even against Chronosphere. But since Legion played this perfectly, breaking the Linken's and using Duo ASAP, Matumba gets caught off guard. Usually people don't even notice it, because since Morphling goes Linken's, Duo is hard to land. But in this case it really ruins his plans. In this clip, Lion was doing some crazy stuff close to Radiant's Ancients, and with a good rotation from Tiny, they snipe him. Pay attention to how Matumba approaches the fight. The last thing he wants to do here is go in aggressive waveform. Not only he has close to 0 strength, but there's a tower there and rotations are always possible. So he disengages while at the same time dodging Slithering Crush. With the relocate, they take Tiny, and he uses the replicate to deal a significant amount of damage to the tier 2 while full agility. If you're going to play as greedy as Matumba is here, you need to be very careful with how you play it, because even with max morph, you can die instantly. When people usually think about Morphling, split push is what comes to mind, and he is indeed great at it, but something a lot of mid-level players undervalue is baiting cooldowns with him. Do you think there is any point for Morphling to go back to the tower when Sven TP is in? I can think of only 2 options. He wanted to dodge Sven's Stormbolt and maybe kill him and go back to the replicate, but he had no mana, or he was playing dumb, trying to force him to use ult. He does force Van's ult later, but it ends up being way closer than he wanted. Morphling is a beast when he has Ethereal Blade, and because of that a lot of players focus too much in farming and forget how strong Morphling is in the mid game. He doesn't have a lot of burst by himself, but usually you can get kills in two different ways. Both of them begin with starting fights that doesn't seem good on paper, baiting reactions from the enemy team, and then follow up with your team's reactions while you tank most of the damage from the enemy team, or when the enemy doesn't have a lot of reaction available, then you can tank through the enemy's damage until you have another cooldown of waveform and then later going back to your replicate or just TPing out. In this case, it's clear that starting so recklessly is not the optimal initiation and Dire wants to punish him, but Matumbaman already has his replicate ready in case something bad happens. Morphling players usually think that it's just safer to farm without making this plays, but when you can bait TPs and use your replicate to get out of a situation like that, you will be able to farm safely, not only because you hopefully killed someone, but there's a big chance you're going to bait important cooldowns that they would use to kill you. In this case we see the opposite. As he farms, he sends a replicate to get a kill with his team. Check how he uses waveform towards the high ground, allowing him to hit Slardar safely. They go high ground and check his decision making. He only uses Morph as he takes damage, and he also doesn't commit waveform at all. They just want to burn the Aegis. And this is where Morphling shines. He creates a replicate that he sends to the top lane. The standard player will try to use the Aegis timing to split push top and commit instantly, but Sven didn't commit at his ult, Sand King also did not, so as they retreat, check how he completely out of the blue commits in again. When he goes for this play, Sven is forced to ult, Slardar is already deep in the fight and now he can split push. Well, he actually ends up backing. Two of his teammates die and he was really low on mana, so he would have a hard time morphing. Not only that, he has no replicate, so running away is more complicated. This clip hides some gems, and this is the type of detail that can make you a better morph player. He gets the DD rune and spots Leshrac. After getting Eagle Song, he hits like a truck. With DD, he is even more of a monster. When he goes on Lash, check how he doesn't waveform right away. He was trying to bait stun before going in, but also wanted to land some right clicks. Even with the medallion buff, he's hitting for almost 200 damage. When he waveforms, you can see 1 damage instance while he's passing by, which means that he right-clicked Lash as he passed through him. Without the medallion buff, Lash would be dead without a doubt. He explodes Slardar, and now they have 2 heroes dead and 1 crippled Leshrac. A lot of heroes love double damage, but I would say Morphling is one of the top 3 best heroes to have DD on. The barracks doesn't stand a chance against him, or do they? I mean, in these high pressure situations, it's hard to think carefully. I feel like suiciding for the barracks would be the best option since they have all of their tier 2s up, but he prefers not to feed and disengages.
Middle barracks are under attack.
Especially because he is 200 gold away from Ethereal Blade. Unfortunately though, he is against a team with 4 Blink Daggers. He probably didn't took this in consideration and thought he could take Sand King down, but the follow-up comes too fast and he dies. An engagement is happening in his top lane, but when Matumba tries to TP, the creep is killed. He decides to follow through bot and pay close attention, and look how aggressive he plays since he has a replicate.
Dominating.
If we go slow motion, we can see a damage instance while he waveforms, indicating that he right-clicked Tiny as he was going in. They explode Tiny, and when Slardar shows up, pay attention to his mouse. He was already hovering that area to waveform and dodge Littering Crush, and they obliterate the poor fishman. Io relocates Morph back as Sven initiates, but his entire team dies. There's one positive aspect of it though. Sven and Sand King both committed his ult, so with travels he can go back. This game is so unfortunate for Matumba. This is the second time he barely gets to take barracks but has to give up midway into it.
Dire's bottom tower is under attack.
In this clip I feel like his decision is even more correct than in the other clip, since he was alone and there were 4 heroes alive and he had vision of none of them.
Dire's bottom barracks are under attack.
And pay attention to how he morphs as he takes damage and not out of fear. He turns on Slardar, replicates, and of course tries to bring the enemy team towards him instead of replicate. I feel like he could waveform and then go back to the replicate, but he was full strength and was probably afraid of being too greedy. And this clip pretty much sums it up, why he backed in that bottom lane push. Morph is great at soaking damage, but he is not a god. If 3 or more farmed heroes go on him at the same time, he has trouble keeping it up. This is another example of a fight that mid-level players wouldn't take, because on paper it is a bad fight, right? They lost Juggernaut once again and Dire has Aegis, so well, I'll tell you what this fight accomplishes. Not only he is confident in soaking up damage with Io close to him, this fight allows Radiant to keep their tier 2 and tier 3 up, since Sven has God Strength up and Aegis, so they are definitely wanting to siege map control. At the same time, Juggernaut doesn't have buyback. This is the type of situation where trying to trade your buildings for farm or pressure in the map is not going to happen. The lanes are not pushed enough, and this move dissuades Dire to keep on going, saving Radiant from a catastrophic situation where they end up trying to fight against Epicenter and Aegis without having buyback on Juggernaut. This is another clip showing how confident Matumba is. With that close to Roshan Observer, he can see that Dire is treading towards his direction, and what would most players do? They would go immediately top, or they would hide for a second and then go top. But split pushing is not only about forcing the enemies to one side of the map, it's about forcing cooldowns and forcing them as much as you possibly can to another side of the map. So even after Tiny shows up, he goes back to the next creep wave, and even though the tossed creep reveals his positioning again, he still stays close to that area. He didn't force any major skills from Dire, but you can be damn sure that if anyone TP'd from the fountain to the tier 3s as it happens even in 5k games, that person is going to take a long time until coming back. Also, chasing Morphling like that completely destroys Dire's chances of using Aegis. In the end though, Juggernaut gets clipped by Sven's ult in a completely different engagement. Most players would be flaming Juggernaut or just grieving, but everything in Dota is a trade. Yeah, Sven killed Juggernaut, but he committed BKB and God Strength for that. Check how Matumbaman knows that, and instead of committing on the lasso target, he explodes Sven right away, while at the same time dealing tons of damage with waveform on the Dire team. Well, this wraps up for today. If you enjoyed this video, please guys, give it a thumbs up, it helps a lot. If you want to see more of this replay breakdown, please check the link in the description. And I can't overstate how this video wouldn't ever be possible without the huge help from the Pugna guys. Bye. And they secure a fairly easy kill on Naga. People often think of Winter Wyvern as a defensive support, but to be honest, I like to think of her as a somewhat middle ground between Dazzle and Oracle. She doesn't offer as much DPS as an Oracle, but you can deal a lot of damage from a good distance thanks to the range of all of her skills. So seriously, don't play her maxing the heal or stuff like that, unless you're against some crazy physical damage threat, and even then, the only thing that